I do that.
Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and get information about this show and previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Asheville area and West North Carolina. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two of my favorite folks, theater folks especially, and they are Marc Cameron and Madison Brightwell. And welcome aboard, guys. You beat me to the punch. Madison knows it. They already waved to you. Okay. We're very excited to talk about a current project that they're both in, a show called Shirley Valentine, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But before we do, what I like doing, folks, is giving people just kind of a brief background as to who you are and, your theater background. I guess, Madison, I'll start with you. If you can keep it to under, I guess, 25 minutes. Okay, can you give the Reader's Digest version? But Madison, I think I've asked you before, but I'll ask you again. You got into theater. How old were you when you got into theater?
Well, I knew I wanted to be an actress from the age of 7, but I think that my first show I ever did, I was 15.
Now, do you remember that first show?
Yes, and I know why you're asking.
Right.
I was in a show called When We Are Married by J.B. Priestley, and I played the maid, and it was a comedy part. And it's set in the north of England, which is where I'm from.
Okay. And so you played that role. I've asked you before, but I'll ask you again. Do we have a record of that anywhere?
No,
No?
this is back in the 70s before we did things like make videos.
They had movies, I guess, then whatnot, but nobody ever taped that show. Is that correct?
No.
So, Marc, I want you to keep this idea in mind, and I may have shared it with you in the past, but I still want to do with somebody this fundraiser where everybody recreates their first role, So wouldn't that be great, Madison? You show Ray, that this is what you did when you were 15. I just love the idea. Everybody creates their first role. So 15 was your first, I guess, official role.
First official role, yeah.
Right. Where'd you go after that?
Then, as I said, I wanted to be an actress. So when I was 16, I moved to London. I went to drama school. And so I would say my first actual professional role was at the age of 18 when I graduated from drama school. And I did actually played a little boy in a Thornton Wilder play. I played a little boy called Billy. And I remember I had to have my breast taped down. And it was a couple of one acts that we did at a pub venue in London. In those days, pub venues were all the rage. And we used to do something called lunchtime theater, where you'd do the show and then everyone would have a drink after and stuff like that. And that was kind of the thing. So after that, I did 20 years about of professional acting.
What, in London for the most part?
In London, in England. I didn't actually spend a lot of time in London because I was always on tour, and I toured all over the continent: Germany, Holland, Austria, Italy, and all over England.
And so then you came to Asheville how many years ago?
5 years ago.
Okay. And what a delight to all of a sudden come to Asheville and find out that you had this acting background, but you didn't act right away. Was your first role? No, you'd done some stuff before Shirley Valentine, right? In Asheville?
Yes. Actually, the first play I did in Asheville was that at the same venue where I first did Shirley Valentine, which was Black Mountain Center for the Arts. And the first show I did there was As It Is in Heaven, and Candace Dickinson directed it. And Janice Schreiber was in it with me, and it was a cast of all women. It was an amazing show. Really loved that experience. And from that, I went on to do several other shows. The next show I did was Oliver at the Heart.
Sure.
Candace asked me to take a little part in that. And then the year after that, I was cast in 3 shows at the Heart, and they all got cancelled because it was COVID.
Okay.
So that was really a shame.
And so out of all the roles that you've done, both in England and in the Asheville area as well. Do you have a favorite role you've ever done aside from Shirley Valentine?
Oh, well, I was going to say Shirley Valentine. Um, Possibly maybe my second favorite role would have been another Willie Russell, which was Blood Brothers, which is it's a musical. He writes amazing parts for women, and I did play Mrs. Johnston, the lead in that, in actually in 2002 in Los Angeles, and it was extremely successful, that production. We did it for 3 months. It then got picked up by another theater. We did it for another 3 months. So we ended up being involved in that show for almost a year. And we won all sorts of awards and stuff. So it was an incredible experience. It's,
And
yeah.
no, I'm sorry, I don't know if you've told Mark this, but that's certainly a show you and I have talked about. We have to get somebody to do, and maybe Candace
Yeah.
is the person to do it hard. But Mark, are you familiar with that show, Blood Brothers?
Yep, very much so.
It's one of the great shows. And Madison, keep this in mind, that nobody's, at least since I've been here, I don't think anybody's ever done it, so if ever there was a show crying out for an audience, that's the show. Mark,
Fantastic show. The difficulty with that is to find the cast members who can handle it, particularly the two young boys, because they have to be able to play children, also with the amazing maturity to handle the role and the singing in it. So
yeah,
it's
but
hard to find people who are that good. Yeah.
But you just told Mark and I that you did this years ago where you played a
Yeah.
guy, so a chance to make a comeback,
Well, I know if I did it again, I'd want to be Mrs. Johnston again.
Mark, the same kinds of questions, and I'll come back to Madison, but your background in acting, Mark, if you could share it.
Grammar school, a couple of but the first play I really was ever in was Gypsy in high school, and I didn't have a speaking part. I was the dancer of Tulsa. Another guy, this guy Mark Filipowicz. He did Tulsa, but he did the lines and everything. I just did the dancing, and then the next year I had a part with lines in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Then I went to college. I was a nurse for 42 years, so I was waiting for a year to get into a nurse program. And while I was doing that, I took some theater courses in college. I didn't start really exploring acting again until I graduated. I was in my 20s and I was living in Washington, D.C., and I attended the Joy Zinnemann Conservatory. And that's where sort of my acting and balancing out nursing, acting on the side, nursing, acting on the side. I always had a good professional job to support my art.
So that's cool. So when you were nursing, you were still acting.
Yeah.
And then, Mark, you came to the Asheville area when?
I'm starting my 7th year here.
Okay. And so certainly in the Asheville area, you've become very active, not only as an actor, but as director as well. Let me ask you.
And I have my own production company, A Third Eye. And unfortunately, that was starting to roll at the time when COVID came. So this is really the first Third Eye production since COVID hit. So it's been 4 years of, not really producing a whole lot. So it's nice to be able to be the first show at 35 Below, because they haven't had anything there since COVID hit. And so it was a great opportunity, good timing. So 35 Below is back. Hopefully Marc Cameron's production company is back. And I couldn't be more blessed, because right now I have the right play with the right person, I think in the right hands at the right venue.
Yeah.
So the stars have aligned. So we're looking forward to having a good run and entertaining people in a very intimate space. That space, you can't hide much from people.
Well, let me ask you, Mark, in terms of the three then things you've done in terms of theater, Madison, the same thing too, but do you have a preference in terms of acting, directing, producing? Do you have a preference as to what you
I
like
would
best?
prefer these days to direct.
Okay.
That is what challenges me the most and pulls the most out of my mind. And hopefully Madison can attest to that I'm doing a decent job. And if you were going to ask my favorite role, it would be doing Mark Rothko in Red. Just as, again, another perfect role, right place, right play, right everything. And I wouldn't mind mounting that again as well.
Well, that would be a great show for 35 Below too. Just wow.
Well, they did it there many years ago
Oh, did
with
they? Yeah.
John Holt. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see it then. But the reason I ask you that question, Mark, and I don't know, Shirley, if he's ever told you this, but I'll ask a lot of actors to prefer acting or directing. And everybody, they prefer directing because the reality, they don't have to memorize the lines, So well, you have the hard work of memorizing the lines. Mark, it's just kind of directing you in it. And I never asked you this, Madison, but have you ever directed as well?
No, and I have zero desire to.
Yeah, how come?
Stay in your lane, girl.
Well, that's
Yes.
good. Yeah. But really, no
I
desire to.
admire directors, people who can do that. I would not have the skill to do it. I think it's not a job that I've ever felt I had that skill set for. No, I love acting. Acting's my thing.
And so we're talking about acting. Let's now talk about the role you will be having, Shirley Valentine. And for the benefit of the folks who don't know the story, kind of the Reader's Digest version, Madison, of the story.
Okay. So Shirley Valentine is she is a housewife. She's 52 in our production, and she's from Liverpool in the north of England. As am I. I'm not from Liverpool, but I'm from the north of England, which is actually important here because there's a certain personality associated with that area. And this was written in the 80s, but I think it's still relevant. She is very much a woman who had a lot of potential, but was never allowed to let that potential flourish because she got married young. She had her kids. She's just been a homemaker. She does go out to work, but it's not a career woman at all. And she's gotten to the point where she realizes that she's completely missed out. And she always wanted to travel. That was always her thing. And then all of a sudden, she's given this opportunity for the very first time in her life to go to Greece. And so the whole play really is about her making this decision to go to Greece and then going to Greece and what she discovers there. And I won't say too much about what happens, but she kind of rediscovers herself, her real authentic self. And so it's
Yeah,
very uplifting, but it's
Right.
also very funny. I mean, what's great about Shirley is she never feels sorry for herself. She never goes into a victim thing. She's very funny. She's very upbeat. There's obviously there's times when she feels sad or angry or whatever, but she has an amazing attitude. And I would say that's a very Northern English quality, that kind of stoicism and that down-to-earth quality that she has. That's a very Northern English thing, which I feel like I'm the right person to do this part, therefore.
And Mark, let me ask you this. How come you chose this show to be at 35 Below? What brought you to the show?
Well, we were going to do it anywhere we could get, and the opportunity at 35 Below presented itself. They're deciding what their season, and I think they have decided what their season was. So we had the option of applying for their season, or the space is empty now. It was 100%. Let's do it. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest crimes would be a little black box that's closed and still black, and we had an opportunity to bring light into it. So we were looking for venues, and this came up. I had not seen the show she had done with a live audience. I actually saw the show at Black Rock, I think on a dress rehearsal night.
That's
and
right.
Just a couple people there. So I knew what the show was like. And Madison was in the Laramie Project, and we talked about, doing Shirley in the future, and then it presented itself. And he's a wonderful playwright with so much underneath all the words. That the subtext is even more important than the text sometimes. And I'm a subtext kind of guy. So it was just the right formula, right time.
And the incredible thing,
it's a good opener for, we're not part of ACT's 35 Below season, but we're sort of prematurely helping them open the space. And I think it's a great show for audiences to come back and say, wow, this is really intimate theater, and I
Mm.
like this one person show, and smaller cast really fit into that 35 below space.
Mhm.
And you caught a break in that you have the person, Madison. I mean, I've only seen her in that role, but I can't see anybody else in that role. You know, it's just that if ever there was a role for Madison, this seems to be the role.
Yeah.
You know, had you ever done Madison before you did it Black Mountain?
I've never done this role, but I always wanted, it was like one of those parts, it's like my King Lear, you know, it was the part I wanted to play. And it's a hugely challenging part because it's 90 minutes on stage, just me. So it's kind of terrifying, but you know, I'm up for the challenge. So yeah, I haven't done it before. I've done other difficult parts before, but this is probably the most difficult.
Have you ever done a one person play before?
I have actually. I years and years ago, I think it was 1982, 83, I did another solo show. It was one I wrote, and I played Buster Keaton because I'm a huge fan. And I wrote the show about him and did this little play about him. That's the only other time I've done a solo piece.
Okay, I'm thinking someday I'd love to see you do that one. You know, he just Buster Keaton. I'd love to see that show sometime down
I
the
don't think I
road.
could do it again because I did all this acrobatics stuff with it.
We'll get
I'm not Pasquale, so I don't think I could do the acrobatics anymore now.
we'll just have Mark then play the role. You know,
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
right. Yeah.
We're the same age. I don't think it's going to work.
Exactly. Talk, Mark, if you would, about one person plays, and I'll share a quote with you in just a second. But what's your feeling about one person plays as opposed to, you know, plays with a large cast? Do you like doing them or seeing them?
I actually do like seeing them. The risk is if it's not done well, just falls a little flat for me. And then it becomes an endurance race. Can you sit there long enough to watch this whole thing? We've all been at shows where we thought, oh, there's no escape. There's no intermission. I can't go home, which is rude, but it does happen. It's reality. But I've seen some one-person shows that if I had choice to go again, I would probably have not chosen to go, but you have to take the risk in theater. You have to go for it and experiment. But when they're done well, you forget about time completely. When I was doing Red, it wasn't one person because I still had Ken.
But close enough. Yeah.
But a lot of times Ken wasn't there. It's demanding. So this is another step more demanding because there is no other actor, although she does get to talk to a rock and she does get to fall
The walls
and herself. So there are some other characters there, but it's really all demanding on Madison to deliver. And kudos to those people that do solo shows and pull it off. And they almost always get a standing ovation because you're like, wow, could I do that? And I don't know if I could do Shirley.
Well, you know,
I really did.
yeah, I had the discussion a couple of years ago with you guys may know him, Charlie Flynn McKeever at North Carolina Stage. And I said, Mark, per our discussion, I said, Charlie, they were doing some one-person show, and I said, geez, I'd love to see it, but I don't like one-person shows. And he caught me in my tracks, and I always remember the quote. He said, no, you don't like bad one-person shows, you know, but just like a cast of 25, you know, you don't like a bad large show. So it really got me thinking, per what you just said, you know, that it's the show itself and the actor, I guess, as well. And if it's good, you're going to love it. You know, who's this particular show, Shirley Valentine? Who should be seeing it? Like any age limit or any groups of people you recommend it for, Madison?
Well, it's going to appeal to women, but drag your husband, your boyfriend, your best friend, or whatever. Men need to see this as well.
Yeah.
And how about an age range? Any age range you suggest?
Middle age, whatever that is. But
but I'm saying any younger. Yeah, teenagers would be appropriate for.
Well, it would be like watching their mom have a life crisis and trying to figure it out. Or for some people, it might be their nana or their mama or Yeah,
Mm.
grandmother, who knows?
Yeah, it could be that teenagers would not be able to relate for their own selves, but it would help them to understand what the older generation went through.
Because when I saw it, I had a vague recollection of film. There was a film on this also?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
80s.
Who was in the film, Madison?
Pauline Collins.
No, had you seen the film?
Yeah, years ago. I didn't watch it more recently. I didn't want to be influenced, but yeah. And she
And
was
Mark,
amazing in it.
have you seen the film, Mark?
I have seen the film. I don't know if it translates to film as well.
Mhm.
I'm a theater person, so I have some of my own biases, but I think the story is told better live in person on stage. It's like you're in her living room, you're in her house, you're in her world, you're in her mind, you're actually in her heart.
Yeah.
You feel her pain, you feel her struggles, you feel her empower herself and rediscover who she is. And I'm not always sure that translates, although it did in the film, but doesn't always translate to film as beautifully as it can live with a person in front of you and a live audience responding to it. You don't get that in film.
I feel like this experience, because I've had it once before at Black Mountain, it's very much like there's a dialogue between me as the performer and the audience. And I've never really experienced that with any other play I've done. Because usually you're on stage with other people and you're dialoguing with them and the audience is just watching. And this one, it's more like, it's like a stand-up comedy routine where you're actually dialoguing with the audience. And you probably wouldn't get that in a movie version. So,
And it's a
I think,
compliment to you. That's kind of what I felt, when I saw the show at Black Mountain. You were like speaking to Cynthia and me and everybody there. It's just such a, it's just, I'm getting chilled thinking about it, but it was that good, and, again, Cynthia was going in the, understanding she had no idea what she was into, so it's just fun to see it and just experience it. In general, do you folks recommend, other than this show, if an actor is going to be in a play, do you recommend them to see the film version if they can, or ignore the film version? Do you have a feeling about that?
depends. I think it depends. Sometimes, I remember when I did Coriolanus, which I did with Melon Weddick at Nemesis, and that was in the early 2020. I did watch the movie because I felt like I really needed to know a bit more about the story and my character and everything. Sometimes it can put you off a little bit or influence you too much. Or you find yourself, mimicking the other actor, which you don't really want. You want to be able to find it yourself. So it really depends.
Mark, how do
And
you feel? Yeah.
as a director, I let actors make their own mind up.
Mhm.
I certainly have watched other recorded versions of actresses doing this role. I have watched the movie. So as a director, I'm going to watch everything. But some actors are comfortable just watching and saying, okay, that was that person's version. There may be some things there that I might need to think about. But certainly you don't want to be, like she says, influenced. But there are actors that can watch it all and then may still maintain their take on Shirley and not be influenced, but be able to glean some important qualities or mannerisms or something that maybe they missed or thought, oh, I can relate to that. So it's up to the actress. I never force, although I have taped people when I thought they were getting in their own way. And so I have taped their performances and showed them and said, listen, can you see that? That's what I'm talking about. But they were so stuck in a way of doing things. And that's been the challenge here for me because Madison's done this before. Her brain and heart have an idea of how this is played. And we decided this is a new opportunity. That's your foundation. Let's jump off that foundation and do something different, go deeper, go further, go left instead of right. Don't go for the obvious choice. Maybe go in the opposite direction. Make it interesting, make it unique. I wanted her to surprise herself as Shirley Valentine. And we're in the midst of serious rehearsals because it goes up, June 6th. But I think she's looking at it in a completely different way. And that was my goal. Look at this. You have a second opportunity. I've done Red 4 times. hopefully I did that character 4 different ways and got even better and better and better and deeper. So that's my gift to her. And she is this actress that's just open. Yeah, take it in. She got 40 separate notes. It's the most notes she ever got, and that was just on scene 1.
Oh, well, I was going to ask
It's
you,
40 minutes long, so she got a note a
A
minute.
note a
That's pretty
minute.
good.
It's
since
fine.
since
No,
you
I love
mentioned
it. I love it.
when you-
Actually, I think Mark is absolutely right. Is that if you're doing a play for the second time, you need to go deeper. You need to be, it's a great opportunity because the first time you do it, it's especially with this play, it's so terrifying. You're just like, can I get through this damn thing and remember all the lines, So the second time you can definitely go deeper with it. So I'm glad he's making sure I do go deeper with it and really expand my knowledge of the character.
when you did Red, Mark, was there a movie version of that? And had you seen it?
I don't know if there's a movie
Okay.
version of it, but certainly they have televised some of the London productions. So I have seen it recorded for TV off of stage. So I think I've seen Eddie Redmayne do Ken. Yeah, I've seen a couple of versions that were taped and recorded specifically for film, but there's not really a movie. But there's many documentaries on and interviews, even though it was the 50s, with Mark Rothko, and he has a long history. It was interesting. I came to the South and I did Red, and I was hanging out with artists and everything, and there were artists here that didn't know who Mark Rothko was, but it's a New York kind of thing. So being a Yankee, obviously I knew that. So it was a challenge to reintroduce people to who Mark Rothko was. And certainly he wasn't a very likable character in the play. I mean, it's kind of nasty and sarcastic and a bit full of himself, but a lot of talented people are, unfortunately. Some of them see the light and change their ways, and he was one that. And the second character in that play, Ken, is a compilation of like 8 people that worked for him over a couple of years because he was such a not nice person. And it was a challenge to play it not a nice person because you know me, I'm a nice person.
For sure. Let me ask you both back to Shirley Valentine. So this is Madison, I guess, one of the largest roles you had, or in single role. Is easy, tough to play by yourself versus with somebody else?
It's it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's pros and cons because when you're with other people, you're also dependent on them. And sometimes, actually quite frequently, you might have another person on stage who's not very good on their lines, and I end up having to rescue them, So there is that. But with a solo show, you've only got yourself to rely on. But on the other hand, also it is difficult because you don't have that thing to bounce off another person, which sometimes can help. So that's why I say really the other character in this is the audience. Yeah, even though they're not saying any lines, their responses are the dialogue for me.
And I've kidded Mark about the fact the one-person show is that if you miss a line other than yourself, the only other person knows is Mark, so I don't know if you missed any. It didn't seem like you did, but I guess that's part of the challenge of being an actor. If you do forget something or it's an oversight, but a big role, and Mark, the same thing too. When you did Red, I just was like amazed to see you do that performance, because that was forgetting even Ken's role. That was a lot of dialogue, a lot to memorize. And boy, you hit it, so same question too. Do you prefer, Mark, in terms of acting, you prefer solo performances or acting with other folks?
I think I'm pretty even for them both. There is an advantage, I think, to doing a solo show. You are in charge of your destiny. It's up to you to do the work. It's up to you to be so memorized that, a bomb could go off and you could still keep going on with the dialogue, they'll clean it up, whatever. You have to be that solid. I have a couple friends here that do really verbose, long monologues and large roles, and kudos to them. They start memorizing months in advance. And with this one, Madison, probably what percentage do you think you already were comfortable with?
Oh, this time? Well, because I'd done it before, that gave me this great foundation. I did it in 2022. And I remember the first time I did it, I literally spent about 9 months before starting to memorize.
That's commitment.
Yes, because I did not want to be panicking at the last minute. I wanted to be so solid that, it's just like it's giving you this really firm base. So this time, obviously, it was like more of a refresher. We didn't even know we were doing it till 2 months before, but it was much, much easier, of course, this time, because we've got that foundation, even though it was 2 years ago.
We were sitting with Nikki and 35 Below. Nikki, I think her last name is
LaRue, yeah.
Nikki LaRue. So she's in charge of programming there. And we were sitting there and we thought we were just discussing doing it in a couple of months. But then we were like, oh, a couple of weeks, maybe 2 months. Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah. I know. I thought we were going to be doing it in the fall, maybe, if we were lucky, kind of thing. And then she said, "You're going to do it in June." Oh, okay.
If I were to do Red again, I would have to start at least 3 months out learning that role again. It's just so demanding.
Well,
And
folks, I'm
it doesn't
sorry.
get easier as you get older, trust me.
No.
If folks want to see this show, again, the details and location and dates and times, Mark, if you would.
Well, it opens on June 6th, which is a Thursday. So it's Thursday the 6th, Friday the 7th, Saturday the 8th at 7:30. And then there's a matinee on Sunday the 9th. So that's the first week, 4 performances. And we're lucky enough to get 4 more performances. So the following Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then a Sunday matinee. So there's 2 Sunday matinees and 6 evening performances. It runs about 90 plus minutes. It has a short intermission. Madison needs a little break from Act 1 to Act 2. Costume change. We got to get to Greece somehow. It takes a little time. But it's about 90 plus minutes. It's a lot of time for the actress. But, once Madison jumps in, it just goes. Tickets are $20, and you can get them through ACT box office. And that's going to, I think they're going to become available sometime. What's today?
I think they said Wednesday or Friday.
Wednesday or Thursday, possibly Friday of next week. They have to work on the artwork. There was a typo, blah, 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 blah. So we got to figure all that stuff out. But you can call the box office at ACT, and or you could walk into them into the main lobby there and get them from the box office in person. 35 Below, just in case people have forgotten, is behind the theater. So you have the museum, Thomas Wolfe Museum there, parking lot there. The entrance is below there. And there actually are 40 seats in 35 Below. And renovated down there. So it's really nice. And there's 2 bathrooms now. Yay.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, they have a second bathroom.
Very good. Well, and I will tell people that even though it's a great space to see a show, with only 40 seats, you're going to have to get
only
seats,
40,
right,
so
seats early. And you're in
fast.
for a treat if you see this show. Just to wrap up, let me just check with the both of you too, in terms of after Shirley Valentine completes its run. Do you have anything scheduled, Madison, moving ahead of this? Anything they can share?
Yeah, I've been cast in The Mousetrap at Heart, and so we're going to be doing that in, I believe it's October.
Okay, great. And Mark, same thing too. Are you directing, acting, any other projects?
I have nothing theatrical going on. I am waiting for this short film I did of a trilogy of books called Perpetual that's won a lot of awards out there in the festival world. So we're waiting for somebody with a couple $1 million to come by and produce it. And that would be probably a great opportunity for a lot of people involved in that. But I just sort of take it as it comes. I have a partner these days, so I'm in between Long Island and North Carolina and a home in Florida. So things are a little fragmented, but something comes up, I'm available. I would love to do more directing for sure. That's just that's the little channel I would like to get into. So Candace, everybody, I'm available.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you both for being my guests on the edition of the Blaine's World show. I'd also like to wish you a huge success in this run. I'm sure it's going to be great. And I'd also like thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and hopefully we'll see you guys both sooner, if not later. Be well.
Well, I hope to see you at the opening.
Yes,
Okay.
at the opening.
Be well,
Thank-
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.